Paul, whether one is a new filmmaker or more seasoned, what would you advise in terms of the best practices for submitting to film festivals? What are some of your sort of quick and dirty little cheat sheet cliff notes that you would give someone?
Well, they're different for seasoned filmmakers versus new filmmakers. If you've been on the circuit before, it's far easier to navigate the circuit. I think with our first film that we did on the circuit, 10 Till Noon, we spent like $3,000 in submission fees. Flash forward to Favor, which is the third film I've had on the circuit, I think we spent like $300 in submission fees. Like when you're an unknown commodity, you go out, you have to pay full fees, and to everybody. But when you've been around the circuit before and you've played at other festivals, you can always write to them and ask for waivers. They don't always give them to you, but often they do, or at least a discount. And the Austin Film Festival, once you've played there, you get a $25 to submit, again, late, early, whatever. It's a flat fee. That's a huge savings. I think their late fee's like $100, something like that. With Favor, Blaine Weaver, my actor, had been in the Austin Film Festival before, so I was able to get that alumni fee. So you can save a lot of money that way. So that's different. Once you played it before, you have an advantage. You're known. You can get around the entries. But even if you're a first-time filmmaker, a couple of things you should do. One, submit early. Submitting late is always more expensive, and your odds of getting in are far lower. They start programming right away, so you want to get in the door. If you submit early and they like your film, they're going to mentally put you on the schedule. If you submit late and they like your film, they have to like your film better than something else they've already mentally put on the schedule. So you go in early, you're not being graded on a curve. You go in late, you are. It's just the way it is. But also the submission fee differences between early and late are astounding. Like, I think average fee early is like $50, average fee late fee is $100. I mean, that's crazy. So submit early, and then be wise about where you submit. I think that if you have a $5,000 feature with no stars and you have no connection to the Sundance Film Festival, don't submit to the Sundance Film Festival. It makes no sense. And don't be like, well, you never know. No, you know. You do know. You're not getting in, especially if you submit late, because their program's set in mid-July. All this. Most of the submissions come in September, whenever everybody's rushing to get it under the wire. You have no chance. The schedule is set. You're literally $125 to pay for Lawrence Fishburne's hotel room. That's literally what you're doing, out of the goodness of your heart, and you're sending them a coaster of your movie for their cold drinks. That's basically about it. So be wise and do your homework. A good thing to do is, if you're thinking of submitting to a festival, and I know there's a lot of legwork, but what you do is go to the website of that festival and look at the previous year's program. If they're playing nothing but Cuban American films, as the Miami Film Festival does, and your film takes place in Saskatchewan, don't submit there. Maybe you should submit to the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival, which is a wider program. Some programs have certain specific directors or tastes. If you've made a mumblecore film, don't submit to Fantastic Fest. Just be wise. Your good batting average for getting into festivals is about 25%. That's pretty strong. So for a first filmmaker. So if you wanted to get to 10 film festivals, you had to submit to 40. Submit early. And don't be afraid to write for waivers if you know somebody or know somebody who knows somebody. You never know.
So let's go back to that first-time filmmaker, because it sounds like a lot of research should really be put in. Did you make like a spreadsheet document? Were you that organized where you tracked?
I wish we were that organized. We blundered into it. That was the whole point behind making official rejection, was that hopefully filmmakers would come in a little bit wiser. We kind of blundered. We kind of went, blah! Like, we'll start with Sundance late, and then we'll scattershot. And now a little more organized about it. I think a good rule of thumb is don't rush to finish your film. Finish it when it needs to be finished. Don't send an unfinished movie, because you just know they'll see the spirit of it and know it's going to be good when the cut's done and the mix is done. They're looking for any reason to reject your movie. Think about when you were casting your film and you got stacks and stacks of headshots. You have one part, you maybe want to read 20 people for the part, you got 400 headshots. You're looking for any reason to get rid of these people. Anything that you can do to get someone off the pile. And programmers are not that different. If your film isn't finished or the cut's not quite right yet, that's a really good reason for them to toss it aside. And again, unless you know somebody and they're going to give you that extra grain of salt, that extra little bit of attention, there's no point in doing that early. So wait till the film's finished, send it in then, and look at the schedule and say, what's the next, if you're going to apply to major film festivals, what's the next 2 major film festivals that are coming up that I can submit early to? There's Toronto, South by Southwest, Sundance, Slamdance, LA, South by. That's really it. Did I start with South by? I don't know. I may have repeated South by in that list. But those are the ones. So if you finish your film in December, well, it's too late for Sundance and Slamdance, and maybe even too late for South by. So maybe start with LA Film Festival and then Toronto. And those are your next 2. And then anything after those 2, if those 2 don't accept you, you're not going to get into any major film festivals. They're all pretty much the same. So, or Tribeca in May. Yeah. So go ahead and after that point, start looking at regional film festivals that you've heard are good. And you want to know about film festivals, ask a filmmaker. Even filmmakers that you don't know, if they're not famous major filmmakers, they'll be happy to write back to you. I actually wrote a blog because I kept getting asked what my favorite film festivals were, just listing, here are my favorite festivals, here's why they are my favorite festivals, and they were regional festivals. They weren't like major ones. They were ones that indie filmmakers have a reasonable shot at getting into if their film is decent. I wrote that blog so I could send it around, and people would say, hey, what's your favorite? I go, here's a list. Phoenix, Dead Center, Napa. There's a whole bunch of festivals that that if you are outside the system and you don't have major stars in your movie and you made your film for $20,000, $30,000, if they like it, they'll still play it. You're not you're not competing against Robert De Niro.
What's the URL for that blog?
It's Just Shut Up and Shoot.
Nice.
is my blog. So.
Let's talk about the more seasoned filmmaker. What are some of the politics and etiquette that one should abide by when going and asking for a fee being waived or a lesser fee?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually really a pussy about it. What I do is, I think a really smart thing to do, and this is just in general, is just be a nice person and be cooperative and be grateful when you get into a film festival and be friendly with the staff. Film festival staff aren't that different than indie filmmakers. They're just trying to put on a show and do their, that's it. I mean, then you're the same thing you're doing. So I find a lot of common ground with that. So, you've been cast in their festival. Be cool. Don't be a dick. Go down there, shake their hand, buy them a drink, ask how you can help, and let that help extend past the end of the festival. Make friends with them on Facebook, get their email address, and then when your new film is ready, say, hey, I just want my new film's just completed, and we're looking at the schedule. We'd love to be able to play your festival again. Blah blah blah. We're going to be submitting. They'll say, yeah, don't pay a fee. Whatever you do, here's a waiver fee. Often they'll ask. Sometimes, so I'll do that, and almost always they'll offer. If they don't offer, then I might say, well, is it possible we can get maybe a discount? And then they'll go, oh yeah, you can get a waiver, and blah blah blah. Or some will say discount. Blaine Weaver, I know, outright asks because he CC'd me on the emails to Austin. Can we get a fee waiver? I'm much more of a scaredy cat about it. And actually, if I wasn't friendly with the staff. We played, for example, Official Rejection played the Waterfront Film Festival, which I'd heard great things about, but it was scheduled the exact same weekend as the Dead Center Film Festival, which I'd already committed to going to. So I didn't get to go to Waterfront. I felt terrible. We played both festivals, but no one was at Waterfront, and I was at Dead Center. When Favor came around, I'm like, well, I'm submitting to Waterfront again, because again, I've heard good things. Submitted to Waterfront, and I couldn't just write to them and go, hey, can I get a waiver? Because I didn't show up the last time. I mean, I told them I wasn't showing up. It wasn't a surprise, but I didn't go. So I paid the full fee. And then we got in, and I did go this time. And they were like, you're so cool for paying the fee. Like, we respected you so much more for paying the fee because, you didn't have to. You could have got a waiver. I'm like, well, I didn't feel like I could ask that of you. But, so.
So let's suppose you've been selected to be in 7 different festivals, some of which you may be able to attend, some of which you will not be able to go to. What are some of the things you should start doing, even if you can't go to them, a filmmaker should start doing to grease those wheels, let them know, knowing you may want to come back in a couple years, things like that?
Okay, well, definitely what you want to do when you get into a film festival is, again, just be cool and be conscious of the schedule. You have to make a delivery to them. So the first thing you do is they'll tell you you're in first, and then a day later you'll get an email, and they'll say, please accept this invitation. They want to know you're in. You accept it. Then you'll get an email from them with all their information, like, thank you, congratulations, you've been accepted. They'll tell you like when it is, what they provide in terms of airfare, hotel, if anything. About half do provide something. Then talk about when materials are due, what the materials are, what you're screening on. So really, you want to think about right away. You want to kind of put together a schedule. Whereas we have to have our master to them by this date, and they need this kind of master. Do they need DCP? Do they need Blu-ray, HD cam, MOV file, whatever it is? You want to make sure you have that in your mind. And then you also, it's an automatic thing where you want to create your bonus materials. You go, okay, well, we need to have posters, we need postcards, and so forth. And then you want to think about whether or not you're going to go. And if they're paying for airfare and hotel, it's way easier to decide. But if it's at the same time as another festival, we had a case where we had 3 at once, like twice on the favor circuit. So at that point, you say, well, who's going to go? Are my actors going to go without me? And you do have, if you have, like on favor, we have 2 solid lead actors. I mean, the film is the 2 of them, pretty much for the entire running time. They're the 2 leads, the 2 character piece. So, and they were both involved from even before we started shooting, during the writing process. So it's easy for me to say, okay, Patrick Day, you're going to go to this festival. Blaine Weaver, you're going to go to this festival. I'm going to go to this festival. We'll divide and conquer. And every single festival gets some sort of good representation of the movie. They get someone who knows the whole film. The actor is less involved with the behind the scenes, as obviously the writer, director, editor is, but they were there and they're on camera, and that's way cool for an audience to see the actor they just saw on screen do a Q&A. So figure out who's going to go, and if you can get there, get there. With favor, it was only one festival this run no one was able to get to, which is pretty cool. I think with official it was about 40% we couldn't get anybody there. It just happens, you just can't afford to get it this time, or there's conflict with something else. But with this, we were very fortunate because we had 3 people we could divide up and send different ways. So that's the first thing you do is start thinking about the deadlines, and its work. And also, I always say, write to them, ask them, acknowledge everything. Great, thank you. So be concise, but acknowledge it. Thank you so much. We'll have all the materials to you. If there's anything else you can do, let me know. If you have any special things you can ask for, or offer rather, so anything special things you can offer, like if you have, we have, this special giveaway T-shirt package, or let them know about that right away and see if they can use it. If you're going to go to the festival, also write to them and volunteer. Well, happy to do panels or whatever you need me to do, so that you're contributing to their show. Part of being grateful. So.
And on the rare instance that you can't make it, life gets in the way, finances get in the way.
Right.
Finances, again, get in the way. What should you do maybe social media wise, or what can you do, virtually that could maybe make up for some of that?
Well, whether you're there or not, you should do as much social media as possible. Mm-hmm. First of all, find the festival's Twitter handle, Facebook handles, like them, follow them. Usually they'll follow you back, or they'll find you as well. Then if you have a website, have a schedule, a screening schedule, add a ticket link when it becomes live to their screening, date, time, everything else. Everything you would put on your postcard, you can put on your website, including the link, which, unlike a postcard, is actually clickable. Have that updated all the time. And you should always do social, but you should do it whether you're there or not. I mean, it doesn't really change it. It's more effective if you're there. Even so, if you know 3 people that live in Delaware and you're in the Delaware Film Festival, the odds of them showing up to your screening are hundreds of times higher if you're actually going to be there to have a drink with afterwards. If you're not there, it's difficult for the festival. The festival's position is, anybody can go see the new Tom Cruise movie anytime. It's playing 35 shows a week on every other screen all throughout the city. But if you want to see such and such, you got to come this one time to this one screening, or maybe 2 times if you're playing twice in a festival. But this is you're not going to see this anywhere else. This is new and exclusive and interesting and different. And any added value you can add on to that event aspect really helps the festival. So you being there in person It's a big deal. I mean, especially in festivals that aren't taking place in Los Angeles or New York, where it isn't as common for filmmakers to just fall out of the sky and talk about their film. It's a big deal. I think it's a big deal for you as a filmmaker to see your film with an audience. I don't watch the movie. I watch the audience watch the movie. You learn a lot, and you learn a lot from people talking about your film and the questions they ask, and they're more likely to remember you when they leave. Because remember, festivals is all about audience building. Creating a brand for your movie, getting it out there in front of audiences so that they remember you when VOD or DVD happens down the line.
Do you see a lot of filmmakers doing those things that you've outlined? I mean, they're all amazing tips, and I think that, this is cliche, but a recipe for success. There we go. Okay. So, but do you see a lot of people doing that?
I do see a lot of filmmakers doing that. You meet the same people on the circuit over and over and over. I think, filmmakers in general, when you've worked for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years on your movie, you're pretty proud of it, or at least you're pretty proud of the accomplishment, or you want to talk about it. It's like, you want to go and blather about your stuff, and so getting in front of an audience where they're going to talk about nothing but your movie is pretty gratifying. Even with the occasional oddball that goes off on a tangent about something else in the audience, which does happen periodically, but even then, just getting out there and glad handing. Some people don't like it though. Some people do. I know they're shy, or they're reclusive, or they don't want to talk about it, or they don't feel comfortable doing it. But it is part of the job. It's what I like to call the politician of the politician role of the filmmaker, where you have to go out. Yeah, you go out, you glad hand, you kiss babies and do all those things, and you got to keep a straight face during Q&A sometimes. I know with Official Rejection, we screened in San Diego, and the very first screening we had, the very first question of the Q&A, I opened it up. Does anybody have any questions? And this guy in the front row went, "It's too long." Like that. And his wife just went, and I kind of just went, "Well, sir, not really a question, but thank you. Anybody else?" You have to kind of smile and move on from there without getting mad or attacking your audience or whatever else.
Right. Heckling back. Yeah.
Heckling back. You can't. You got to be cool. You got to be cool. You got to respect everybody. "I didn't like your movie." Okay. Doesn't happen. Actually, usually if they don't like it, they're going to leave. I've had someone with Official Rejection. So we got in Denver. Someone came up to us, a filmmaker who had, I guess, programmed for Sundance, who was kind of offended by the movie. Don't argue with him. Just okay, hear him out. That's hard to do sometimes. But being a politician is important for audience building. It's important for network building. Again, if you want to be on the circuit a second, third, fourth time and not spend thousands and thousands of dollars getting your film out there, going out and glad handing and bring the staff pizza. The staff is working their asses off in that office. They haven't seen daylight for weeks, and when they do, it's someone wanting something from them, some filmmaker wanting to know why the screening was 2 minutes late or something like that. So at Denver Stars, we brought them a bunch of pies.
Oh, nice.
And they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you brought us pies." And then I asked for a fee waiver.
What flavor were they? They weren't rhubarb, were they?
Pizzas, sorry.
Oh, I see.
Pizzas.
Oh, I thought you
No,
meant
our Vatavilla pizza in Denver. Best pizza in the city. Better than Bojo's. We brought them stacks of those, and they were very happy.
Going back to being the politician analogy, which I think is just brilliant. So many filmmakers sometimes seem like they get a little nervous being in front of the crowd, whereas the actors love it. And I know there will be people in groups, if you ever watch the Jerry Springer show or whatever, they love to test that person in the hot seat, and they like to kind of see the reaction. So sometimes people stand up and, "Curious why you did this." Bam, silence, you're on. So how would you advise the more shy, reclusive auteur to handle that situation? Because it inevitably will happen.
It does. You have to. You have to man up in those situations, and you have to sort of. You have to just be kind and remember things from their point of view. I mean, you start attacking the audience, it's not cool. No one in the audience, even your allies, the audience, are like, "Oh man, he's being it." We had a thing at the Q&A for Favor, the very first world premiere. It was a really good Q&A, but we had one guy in the audience who started talking about Mad Men, because in Favor, Blaine Weaver's character works for an ad agency, and I had worked in advertising, and those creative pits. I mean, there's the nice boardroom, everybody gets dressed up and meets with clients, but for the most part, they're these scruffy little hole dens with desks covered in papers and bits of product and just notes and cartoons and just weird stuff. And everybody's got their sleeves rolled up and they're not bouncing a ball against the wall. It's a very messy, kind of low rent environment. So in the film, we shot it that way. I mean, part of it was because we couldn't afford, big ass offices, but we shot it the way I know it, which is a scruffy little, work pit. And the guy, this older gentleman from the audience started going, well, he goes, it went on for several minutes. He goes, seeing this low rent, scuzzy ad agency in this film makes me wonder why you chose to do that. Because most of us are used to seeing what ad agencies look like on AMC's Mad Men, new season of which is debuting in June 5th or something like that. He goes, those rooms are pristine. I'm just seeing these scuzzy, scumbag, Skid Row looking. He went on and finally, and he kept saying AMC's Mad Men, and I finally said, do you work for AMC? I said, well, yeah, I worked in advertising. This is what I'm used to. I know that I'm sorry, the reality of your 1960s soap opera doesn't quite add up to, this. This is not AMC's Mad Men. There's no Don Draper in it. Yeah, that guy's he said he called Blaine Weaver no Don Draper.
Oh, wow.
So we're just kind of like, well, it's a good show. It's a great, you just kind of like, you kind of justify your choice, and the guys agree. You say, well, hey, that's a great show, and you kind of find something in his opinion or that person's opinion I can see why you would say that, or I see your point of view. Right. Step into their shoes for a moment and sort of see it from there, or at least say you can. And I think often, if someone does have an axe to grind, which again does not happen very often, but if someone does have an axe to grind, they're confused about something in the film. And they say something either negative or murky, hearing them out and not belittling them, treating them like they're stupid, or just treating them with respect, regardless of what they're saying, I think they come away feeling better about it. I was heard. And so they're going to still leave your screening happy and satisfied. Well, movie was okay, but I like the guy. Or maybe they'll go, yeah, that movie was pretty good. Yeah, there's one thing that I wish had been different. It wasn't what I was expecting, but they come away feeling better. One of the worst Q&As I felt so bad was for a film called Coffee Kill Boss, which was the opening night film in Austin last year. And I know a couple of the cast members, and the movie's not confusing at all. It's a comedy, and it's not confusing what happens in the film. And I don't know why this happened, but at the Q&A, someone in the audience said, so who was the killer? And it was super, it was revealed. It was like a major reveal who the killer was. You're the killer. It was super obvious. And the director goes, it was so-and-so? So-and-so was the killer? Well, wait, who was, I thought so-and-so was the killer. And someone who obviously wasn't the killer. No, it was so-and-so. Well, did so-and-so survive? Well, we saw them dead in that scene with the knife. And so that, it went on 7 or 8 questions deep of people asking him story points that were painfully obvious. And I saw him afterwards and I said, don't worry. The film's not confusing at all. I don't know why you had this run of people who didn't follow the movie, but I can't imagine why anybody would be confused. You didn't make a confusing film. Because for him, it must have been oh my God, what have I done? No one can follow this movie,
Well, sometimes there's public contrarians that like to kind of be the one that stands up.
Yes.
Whether it's in a classroom or a work. They love to, and I think the way to diffuse those people is agree with everything they're saying. Because that actually diffuses
a little bit
their whole purpose.
I think you shouldn't keep in mind you are in front of an audience when this is happening. It's not like a one-to-one. If they come up to you afterwards, you still be respectful. But when you're in front of a lot of other people, you do have to it's Obama at a town hall meeting. You got to take down that one really conservative Tea Party person that says, "Well, I don't like this," and you got to kind of go, "Well, actually, I understand your point of view. I understand this, but you have to kind of diffuse it." But what I find often happens. Almost always happens is, again, your Q&A is your barometer of how the audience has reacted. So if you lose most people for your Q&A, and there's no reason to, it's not your screening's running late or there's something else happening that they have to get to, normally if you lose most of your audience, it's because they didn't like the film. If you lose half your audience, you divided the audience. It means half liked it, half didn't like it, and it's a cult film. But people that stay want to stay because they enjoyed the movie and they want to talk to you and find out something about it. If you didn't like a film, you don't want to know about it. So almost everybody in your audience that stays is on your side. With Favor, we had really good retention. Thank God, we had like 90, 95% people would stick around for the Q&A, so we were doing pretty well. And that said, most Q&As, most of the people were, almost every Q&A, everybody's cool, because again, they all like the movie. But every once in a while, every 5 or 6 Q&As is that one detractor stands up. And universally, almost every time, you don't have to do anything, because the other audience members will jump on him. What do you mean? You know, like, oh, I thought it was too long. It was a perfect length. What was too long? What would you cut out? What would you cut out? Like, it was, you know, like there's always that way. They stand up and sort of defend you. You know, it's sort of interesting. And again, so it makes it way easier to be like the cool guy in the room.
Right.
Because they don't have to prove anything to anybody. your angry mob of fans does, you know, they don't have to make friends with this guy, but you still kind of want to. Not everybody's gonna like your movie. You know, it's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with someone who doesn't like your film. And it's just not their cup of tea, whatever it is. So you have to be prepared for that and respectful of it and hear them out. Sometimes you'll learn more from those that didn't like you than those that did.
Paul, what do you consider the minimum cost a filmmaker should spend on their festival run and will do seasoned versus beginner?
What's the minimum cost? I don't know that there is a minimum cost. I mean, it's possible to spend nothing. I think you want to think of it more in terms of how many festivals do you want to play. I think is more an idea. I think you want to play, if you really want to play 10 to 15 festivals if you can, over the course of a year to 16 months. So I think as you get close to finishing your movie, I think you want to look at, okay, we think we'll be done by May. So it's maybe kind of too late to submit, definitely too late to submit to Tribeca or LA, probably too late to submit to Toronto. So maybe we do try an early submission to Sundance and Slam. If it's if you're first time filmmaker, Slamdance, because Slamdance only takes first time filmmakers into their competition category. Okay, we're going to submit to those two. After that, we'll submit to regional festivals, you know, that we can submit to reasonably far enough in advance that we're getting early submission fees and we have a better chance of getting in. And then you start looking at the schedule and again, talk to a filmmaker, find which ones you want to hit. But I think you want to try to get into 10 to 15, which means applying to 40 to 60 festivals, but applying early where it's like $35, whatever is more advantageous. And do it slowly. Don't do it all at once, because festivals, well, I mean, first of all, a lot of festivals aren't open yet, but also as you start to play, once you start to play, you start getting invited to other places. Oh, I heard about your film and we want to submit you to this festival. Or, you know, there's a programmer at Waterfront that saw our film, liked it, and recommended it to several other festivals. So we'd been submitted to 4 or 5 other festivals for free because she heard of it. So, you know, I think do it slowly, roll out slowly, and dip your toe in the water a little bit, because if you've done 10 submissions and you haven't gotten into anything, and they're not, and you've gotten some smaller festivals and there's some regional festivals in there, and no one's biting, then you might want to take a look at your movie. It may not be 4 festivals, but this, you know, again, like, do your research. There's festivals for everything. If your film's, if it's reasonably well made, you know, regardless of what it is, you should be able to get some decent festival play, because most films aren't reasonably well made. That's really the trick is. They say, oh, you know, there's 10,000 features made a year, but only, you know, 1,000 are watchable in any way. Only 1,000 have real actors, or, you know, it's a much smaller pool. So there's a place for you. It's funny, like it's genre dependent too. Like I've learned that comedies have an easier time getting programmed than dramas, and that romantic comedies have an easier time than that, because festivals have to program a certain amount of lighter material for older audiences. I mean, older audiences come in and they want to see, you know, things that are different. They don't want to see blockbusters. They want to harken back to a time when movies didn't suck so bad, you know, the Hollywood ones. But they also are, you know, relatively conservatives. They occasionally want to see a love story rather than all the dark, dirgeful stuff that most filmmakers, like myself, tend to pour out. So very often than not, I'll see a romantic comedy, and I've seen some good ones. I have, But often I'll go to a festival, I'll see a romantic comedy, and I'll go, that wasn't so good. Oh, because it's a romantic comedy. They had to program 2, and they only found one that they liked. So the other one is kind of just in there. But yeah, there's a place for everything. So that's really, there's no minimum. I mean, you can get waivers and you can get recommendations. There's no reason you can't spend 0, but you want to make sure your throw is big enough that you take advantage of the circuit, that you're able to play a good smattering around the country. Because when you do go to VOD, DVD, whether you do it through Gravitas Pictures, Film Buffer by yourself, you want your film to have access to an audience. Favor will have played 12 film festivals on its film festival run, and we have one more coming up. And we have, I think it's an average of 30,000 attendees per festival. That's the average. So that's 360,000 people that have been exposed to our advertising material thanks to these non-Sundance festivals, these regional festivals, and they're all over the country. So that's a pretty good throw. And when we come out on VOD in April 1st, we come out on VOD, I'm going to be writing every one of those festivals saying, hey, can you go on Twitter and tweet about us? Can you, do you have a newsletter? Can you put us in your newsletter? Can you send an email blast out to your email people? Can you, to your mailing list? Can you put us in the news items on your webpage? And festivals, even though the festival only runs part of the year, they're operating year round. They want to stay relevant year round. So some own their own theaters, some do screenings and fundraisers throughout the year. Some have mini offshoot versions of themselves, like we have the horror one in October. But they want to stay relevant, and your success is their success. You're forever an alumni of that festival. So, hey, we're the Dead Center Film Festival. This film we played is doing well. Well, that reflects well on them. And the people that they're sending that blast to, saying they're on VOD, have been exposed to the programs and Festival Genius and all the things that happened when we did play there last summer. So even if they didn't see the film, there's some brand awareness. That's important. So moving forward, I think you definitely want to have, if you're going to do festivals, a big enough chunk. And that's really what you want to hit, regardless of how much money you spend. This is my hands. I don't know why I'm doing that.
What should the Joe or Jill filmmaker who's brand new, who wants to know about a particular film festival do? Should they find out who some of the alumni are, find those filmmakers' websites, and then just shoot them a quick email? And what should that email say?
Newbie filmmakers can write to the filmmakers that have been to their festivals. Their best bet is to go to the festival's website, look at the kinds of films that have played at that festival, see if they're in the same species as their own movie. If they're all star vehicles that came out of Sundance, they're probably not going to play your little film. If they're all local Alabama films and you're not a local Alabama film, they're probably not going to play your film. If they play mostly foreign films, or they play social consciousness movies, and your film's a horror movie, make sure you fit the program. Then yeah, if you want to know about it, and I've done this, is you write to filmmakers that have been at that festival. This is actually a good idea for anything. Talking to a distributor, talking to a film rep. Look on their website and see who's played their festival, who they represented, or who's been distributed by that distributor, whoever it is, and write to those filmmakers, because 9 times out of 10 they'll write back to you, and just say, hey, my name is Paul Osborne. I made this film called Favor. We're considering submitting to the Indie Memphis Film Festival. We saw that you played there last year. If you wouldn't mind letting us know whether it's worth our time. It looks like a good festival, but sometimes you can't tell from the website. What were your impressions? Was it good, bad? Don't do it through the festival or don't ask them, who can I talk to? Go to their website and write to them independently, because obviously you want to get a real answer. 9 times out of 10, and unless you're writing to the studio film that was there, the opening night studio film, if you're writing to a film that's around the same, again, in the same species as your movie, they'll probably write back to you, and they'll be honest, because filmmakers tend to like to help other filmmakers. I find it's much more of a brotherhood than maybe I think sometimes distributors wish it was. They wish we would fight it out, but I think I like to help other filmmakers,